Twins.
Cheers. Ken, before we go on to that, you were touching on the subject of chemoreception. Just explain to people that might not know what that is and what your thoughts are on it.
Right, so bait-wise, when Jim used to get all them scientific papers, a lot of people, I mean, I had massive piles Jim got us years ago. Now you just get it on the internet, but knowing where to find them and whatnot, Jim used to send off all around the world, Japan, everywhere. We learned a lot, and there was a lot to do with chemoreception on carp, attractability, palatability. There was a Japanese fella, O'Hara. I'm sure he was O'Hara.
That's a Star Trek character, isn't it?
No.
Oh, that's Uhura.
Uhura, yeah.
Go on,
Lieutenant Uhura,
yeah.
Right, so going back to that, done a 28-year study on carp, which is where a lot of out there in Asia, it's food. It's trillion-dollar business worldwide. Koi, a lot of the koi foods come from his study. He had a laboratory out there, Japan, pet food industries, etc. He was government sponsored. He searched everything, and when you get back to, I read every single paper that I could get of his. He said we've explored every single angle, but reading on them, everybody looks for attractability, but they forget the main thing as well, palatability. That's where the HMV principle comes in. So when you read a lot of Paisley's old writings, my God, did he understand bait? Exceptional. So where they want to get ingredients that attract, which we have, as you can see, but also the bait. There's certain products you can put into, if you've got a real high-end quality base mix, they'll keep coming back and eating it. They say, how do fish recognise things? We recognise what's good for us. How does a wildebeest walk from the same path for 10,000 kilometres across Africa, same path every day? How does a swallow or a swift take off from the same nest, fly for 2.5 years and come back to the same nest? We need a sat-nav to get anywhere, don't we? So with bait, there's certain ingredients you can use which are available. Go back to that testing, O'Hara, all this, that, the other. They used to show you pointers. They become addictive when they eat them. So there's certain ingredients that they will eat, they will keep coming back. They have semi-addictive qualities. So when they go on about tank testing, we've tank tested this, tank tested that, take it with a pinch of salt, because that's just for initial response. But when you've got long-term nutritional recognition, which these ingredients, certain ones do, there's some real high-end fish meals, there's some amino acid products, beef liver powder's one of them, Hachi wrote all about it. You've got to hit it with a full package, liquids, flavours, initial response, and then the palatability, addictive qualities, which is what we try to work for, which is where obviously carp fishing's gone a little bit too far. Look at the match scene where it's all erupted for the last few years. I said to him, why don't you fish the carp matches? He went, can't win. Because they was all using the hormone and stuff, weren't they? It was,
do you know what, Ken? Do you know, I don't know. That's a sensitive subject. Let me come into the camera on that, right? Ken's just touched on the hormone thing, right? I ain't got a clue about hormones, right? And when it kicked off 3 years ago, whatever it was, people thought I might have an idea about this hormone thing because of my association with koi and what have you. I didn't have a clue, and I still do wonder whether there was a lot of smoke and mirrors. So we ain't rehearsed this. You got your thoughts, I've got mine, right? Initial, yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I really didn't know where to go with it, or I had no real thoughts on it, and I did wonder if it actually existed in fishing. You know, that was my thought on it going back a few years. It's all quietened down now.
It has quietened down, yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't know where to start with that. So let's go back to behind the camera, leave you to elaborate on that sensitive subject.
Right. So, without going too far into it, and
we don't want to upset anyone on these films.
I don't really care who I upset.
I know you
don't.
Honest. I
do. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Yeah.
The carp matches were unfairly won by certain individuals consistently. They still are. Certain people are using them. Good friend of mine, lovely fella, was threatened with being sued because he mentioned it on his podcast, who was doing what and what not, threatened to be sued. So this is quite a touchy little subject here. So we got on to a very, very good professor. That professor is one of the top in the world. We spoke to him. We mentioned, he went, yeah, this, that, the other. There's one from Australia and there's another one. He said, if it goes to court, we can't help you. He said, but what I can say to you is use this company where we done some trials with DNA testing, so they can go to a water, Kev, and they can take a sample of water back to the lab, done it on Spellbrook. They put 20 barbel in and they can pick out the barbel's DNA out of the water. So they can tell you what species live in your water. It's phenomenal how it's done, DNA water testing. He said, we can look at waters where these individuals go fishing. There will be a trace element of these chemicals in that water which are not natural. There's no reason for them to be there. He said, so if you went to court on a libel case, he went, we could look at these venues where they've been doing these matches. We can pick out them trace elements of these certain chemicals. And he went, that puts doubt into the case. They cannot win because them chemicals are in there, guilty by association. So we managed to avert a little court case there, which is quite nasty because the guilty parties were lying through their teeth and threatening several individuals, one of them poor old lovely fella, with suing them and taking them to court and this, that, when all the time they're lying. So luckily, there is the basis there from modern science, DNA water testing, where they can find these chemicals in the water, and that's come from one of the top professors in the world, not me or a fat bloke down a pub. So
again, I was just saying to Ken, that hormone thing, I'm almost stuttering even mentioning it. Yeah, I don't know that, for this video, like Ken said, all he's interested in is giving his thoughts quite rightly and his experiences. For me, you know, making this video, I don't know that it's a subject I want to elaborate further on. Can we talk about boilies?
Yeah, let's talk about boilies.
Yeah. Let's go back behind the camera.
Yeah. But it is a fact. It does exist. Yeah, there's two different products that they are using, and it's highly unfair in the match scene because it's cheating.
Ken just said, I could see you getting all nervous.
He got a bit stressed.
Yeah, I did get a bit stressed. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, back to the subject of boilies. On that note,
I got told off.
So Ken, talk us through your boilie ranges.
We just do the basics, like 6 mixes, starting off with a maple mega nut, which is tiger nut type peanut meals, but we've gone off in a different direction. So we ran the same mix for 8 years, and then we just thought, like, let's have a change. So we've loaded it up with whey proteins, isolated peanut proteins, gone off on a different tangent. We've made like a sort of an HMV type nut bait, which I don't think there's many out there on the market. It's highly active, very, very active. Literally in the summer, within 2 days, it's gone bright white with a culture. So it's a firm favourite of everyone. Me and all the boys, we're all going to be using it this year because we've seen what it's done. It's exceptional. Not too easy to roll, but my God, does it catch fish. Dinny's been out playing with it. Even his eyes are turned. It is exceptional. So when you go to France, you've got 1 week at a venue, wherever you are, to catch all the fish in the lake. You've got to give them something that they're going to eat, palatable, highly quick reacting. Take the mega nut. Literally, you take a bag out every day or whatever you're using, let it, the culture kick in, bang. It's on hard lakes. I was going to go and fish a lake last year. I never got round to it, the health reasons. There's about 7 carp in it. Huge lake, 7 carp. I can make any boilie I want. What was I going to take? Mega nut. Because
Ken, very quickly then, you just give me again a thought process.
Yeah.
We touched on it earlier. A really big lake, very few carp. How do you approach a water like that, Ken? You're targeting 7 fish in how many acres?
What's it, about 60 acres
right,
probably?
Okay,
yeah.
Where would you start with that?
Trees.
Right.
And a plumbing rod. So, work your lake out. Depths, first thing you do when you go to any lake. You got a campaign till you catch that fish, or just to get a bite. Work out areas, depths, then you start location. That's what they invented polarised glasses for. Most people are not interested, they just want the latest rods and a super bivvy and get in a big swim where there's no mud. Get out the trees, walk round. Look at Dave Lane, Terry Earn, exceptional anglers. Walk round, walk round, walk round, catch. They catch everybody. Why? Because they got the gift. Watercraft was the word.
Just say...
No, my mind went blank.
Hold on, I need to come round again. Let me just flip that sort of thing. I've got to put this in as a caveat. Climb trees at your own risk.
Yeah. But unfortunately, my time at the moment, the last few years, family. I'd rather go and sit and watch a video of my daughter, Tinkerbell and stuff like that. I've watched my kids growing up, so now hopefully I'll get out, do a bit more carp fishing. But back then I was just full on focused. 1 year I done 186 nights. No wonder my missus left me back then.
That's a very interesting point, actually, Ken. You just touched on there, and hold on a minute, because I don't want this video to sound like we're some sort of lifestyle gurus, but I've got a point on that. I'm 62, right? I've been with my wife, my first girlfriend, 40 years. I asked her when we was on a holiday celebrating our 25th year wedding anniversary, what was the secret, if you like, of us being together for so long and happy, I've got to say. And she said tolerance, and I thought it was the perfect answer. Over breakfast on a cruise ship, that will stay with me forever. And that was the perfect word to describe, I think a lot of relationships, particularly us carp anglers. And maybe go, I don't know, if you're a rock climber, if you're a marathon runner, I don't know, whatever, you're a tree bark grubber, but want to go to every country in the world to, rub tree bark. Carp angling is at times can be a very selfish hobby, and I look back myself at times having been very selfish, but I don't know that you can be too selfish for too long. And you might be, some of you boys might be watching this, you might be on your 3rd marriage, 4th marriage, 5th marriage, 2nd marriage, I don't know, whatever it is. So please don't think I'm any sort of lifestyle guru. But one thing I do know, and that is this modern day, fishing, for anyone out there, especially the youngsters, there's more to life than carp fishing. I've caught some big fish. For most people who are sensible, it means sod all, right? It really don't. I've said before, you go to a barbecue, you talk to someone who don't know much about fishing, and we can all relate to it. You caught a big fish, you get your phone out nowadays. They look at you, well, what'd you do with that? Well, I photographed it and put it back. And how long did it take you to catch? Well, I was fishing for 2 weeks, and, one thing and another. And you get that sort of look as if you're nuts. Well, we know we're not nuts. We love our hobby. It's a fantastic hobby. And I'm so pleased, that, my mate Barney, who will watch this, introduced me to it when I was 10, fishing on the, at Passingford Bridge and Rayfalls Park and stuff. But I do wonder at times whether, and myself included, don't get me wrong, we just take it a bit too far. There's a lot more to fishing than fishing, and I would suggest, you know, relationships and whether you have kids, want kids, don't want kids, whatever, is a lot more important than telling people or even thinking that you've caught a whacking great big carp. Yeah, don't miss your kids growing up. That's what I would say.
That's it.
Yeah?
I grew up without a dad, and I always made a point when I have kids, I will make sure they get a good life, which they have. My boy's 24 now. My daughter's coming up for 18. People can say, "Oh, why don't you carp fish hard anymore?" Because I want to see my kids grow up.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's only a lifestyle video, boys. Don't get me wrong.
Hey,
and again, where this come from, I have no idea because it weren't on our agenda. But yeah, let me say that
carp fishing, put it in your own perspective.
Get it in perspective. That's my advice, especially to youngsters who think you know they want to get sponsored and have a career in fishing and one thing and another. You might just need a bit of a reality check. Anyway, back to the subject. Boilies.
Boilies.
Crikey, we touched on a couple of subjects there in the last 5 minutes, haven't we? So back on the subject of boilies, Ken. Yeah, and again, talking about your mega nut and talking about the range of baits.
We try and do a bait for each sort of particular type of. We do a boilie for. So we start off in your nut mix, which is carbohydrate, quick catch, but long term. Then we start working up through the ingredients. So then we start getting onto your cream amino, which is alternate proteins, highly soluble, 5 different bird foods, very specialised bird foods. We've got some really exceptional gear in there, palatable. Then the protein levels start getting higher, so then we get into the red spice. Then we work up into cinnamino, which is probably our newest bait, which is what Jim and that's been using for 2 years. Obliterated the lake they was on. Exceptional bait. Doesn't work everywhere. That's going off on the old cinnamon tangents. And then we get into the 2 fish meals, which are sort of the higher end. So we've got the marine, which is sort of an HMV type fish meal with some bird foods in to make it more digestible. Again, I spoke about it before, beef liver powder, crustacean meals, monster crab, shellfish, sensibil, a la salar. Tremendous package. Everyone's used it, everyone knows about it, it works. Everyone's looking for the next best thing in bait. Most of it's all done, Kev. Stuff we was using 30, 40 years ago is brilliant. Still works now. Look at plum, what that done years ago.
And again, Ken, there are 2 things there. First question, just rewinding a few seconds, your cinnamon bait, you said doesn't work everywhere. Why wouldn't it work everywhere?
Right, so when you're looking at baits, people come in here, which bait is going to catch me all the fish in my lake? So we look at certain baits work in certain areas. So they work, it's all to do with, now this is where it can get really technical. pH is a broad way to mention it. So each lake has got its different makeup. You'll have a freshly dug gravel pit, you'll have a clay pit, you'll have a silty old estate lake, you'll have a river. There's all different parameters. So they all work in different ways, them ecological systems, and they all have different water makeups. So certain baits will work in certain areas. Fish meals work brilliantly on gravel pits, etc, etc. But take a fish meal, a full fish meal, which is a common known thing, even going back to the old days. They didn't work on will, did they, fish meals? They don't work on silty lakes to a degree. It doesn't work everywhere. Some fish meals do work. Each lake is different. So people go, what bait's going to work on my lake? I ask them if it's on a floodplain, what is it near a river? All different systems, they work in different ways. Red spice works on silt, cream amino works on silt. Go over to Sutton, the old Sutton venue, smashed to pieces on the cream amino. Each bait's got its own parameter, so they're not all going to work on your lake, but work out which one does work, it's game on. Yeah,
Ken, my other question there, which you evoked, was the subject of flavours and stuff. And going back when I first started using flavours, 79, when I took up carp fishing, you know, seriously, if you like, and Dubois and Rosell was pretty much the go-to flavour house via Bait 78. And I was using their peach flavour. And I think I was using it more because I like the smell of it than anything else. But I think with Hutch's writings and others, am I right to say that the smell to us was a lot less important than the ingredients that were used to make up that flavour?
Yeah, so this is the real thing with flavours. Everyone go, oh, this flavour, that flavour. It's not the flavour. It's where that all different. There's thousands of flavour companies in the world. They'll all make a peach, but that peach, there's only like this company's better than that one for fish. They're all made up in different ways. The bases of flavours. Now look at what the base. When I look at a flavour, I don't look at the smell. Obviously, this in commercial sales, you've got to catch the angler, but you've got to catch the fish. But when I look at a flavour, the first thing, what is that flavour base on? So you've got propylene glycol, which is the most common one. You've got glycerine, glycerol, isopropyl alcohol. You've got ethyl alcohol. There's a tremendous amount of different bases. Diacetyl, diacetyl, which you can't get anymore. There's all sorts of things. So when we used to identify, like you'd read write-ins, Hutchie, why did chocolate malt work? Diacetyl base mix, wasn't it, on the flavour? Exceptional. What is diacetyl made from? Sugar. It's a sugar type thing. It's a sweetener. It's a very palatable sweetener. So we use certain flavours that I know that base mix is compatible with them ingredients. So when we're formulating bait, it's not just about put flavour in and a few additives make it work. We've got catalysts that work. That liquid feeds that chemical feeds that then that culture feeds on ingredients in your base mix, sugars, different types of simple carbohydrate. It all acts as a catalyst that sends that nut mix into overdrive. So it's not just a case of throwing a few Boilie's ingredients together and hoping for the best. When I make a bait, it's what works with what. We done a lot of work on the R1, which is a bloody high-end fish meal, exceptional products. And the top end, we used the old Darren Valley boys, mate. They smashed places years ago on that skunk oil. And we used,
I remember that. That's an old name, Ken.
So we spoke to a few of the boys who worked there, and it was a good bait. We played about it for years. Squid meals, different, very, very good, palatable, high-end fish meal, milk proteins. We used the skunk oil and the blueberry flavour, because there's certain things about that blueberry. We blend our own blueberry off 3 different things. We couldn't. It was working brilliant, but not high-end. There's again the stuff I spoke about, the pre-digested fish meals. We've got 3 different ones in there. There's the ingredient, one of the ingredients which I said that's added to it, which is semi-addictive, comes out of the fish farming industry, the shrimp farms. Exceptional product. It was only when I spoke to a fellow who worked there years ago, he went, every bait that with that skunk oil that worked had garlic in. He went, when we put the garlic, it made it better. It enhanced it. We dropped a couple of mils of garlic in, not garlic oil, different thing. So we used... What
different thing, Ken?
It's all to do with solubility. Now, we can't give too much away.
Okay, so is that a no comment question?
That's a definite no comment.
Right, okay. Yeah, coming back to that, Ken, there's a few of those boys. Whether they're, you know, we probably know more of them if they're down in Essex or the Colne Valley, but there'll be boys in the Midlands up north. There's a lot of good guys out there making bait.
There is, I mean, going back to my nut mix, where I said we revamped it last year, there's a few fellas up north, good anglers, under the radar, don't talk about things. They're full on bait. and Turtle told me they're using this product, which they're having tremendous results on, and I'd heard about it before, I'd not used it. It's a powder, we put it in the nut bait, boom. Credit to them, I've never met them, but just a bit of feedback. You've got to keep your ears to the ground. Everyone's searching for the latest product. That bait, that's been about for, God knows.
I know
it goes
some
in
of
Snickers, Mars use it.
Yeah, and I know some of the ingredients you've referred to in the past when we've been down here on a Saturday, you've been using 30 plus years. There are some baits, like you said, we've, you know, when Hutchie and John Baker and stuff were writing about bait, you know, back in the early 80s, late 70s, some of those ingredients are still just as good today as they were back then. Yeah.
Kev, look at flavours. We was talking about flavours. Now, when you study a flavour, John Baker's the man to ask about flavours.
And again, you're always very complimentary of him. In fact, I see half of John's flavours here.
John Baker, 1 litre of Asylum, 200 quid.
Yeah, oh, we know they're good. They cost a fortune. Joking, John.
Exactly. I mean, mate, he's leagues ahead of everybody in that department.
Ken, I just looked at the top shelf there. I could never reach it when I was a kid. Yeah, you still got some very old school, you know, listed products here that, you know, just take you back 40 years.
They do. Chocky B goes in our nut mix.
Yeah, which we used to put with the Tigers.
Chocolate Tigers. Look at Gary Brooks, mate. What? Yeah,
another great angler.
Exceptionally gifted tiger nuts soaked in Chocky B. The recommended manufacturer's level was like 10 mil to X amount of kilo. Gary used to put 50 mil into a pound. Empty places. One of his greatest captures, I remember him going up to Billing Aquadrome. We didn't even know there was any big fish in there. He had a 36 common out there on phenomenal capture. Stuck in my mind all them years.
And the list goes on. We could be here all day listing anglers that we know that, you know, we've got great anglers. One question, Ken. You've referred several times to solubles. In summary, what are you suggesting in using the word soluble?
Right, there's many different things: attraction, chemoreception, palatability. So, without giving too much away, water. When they make drinks, they use certain bases to cut them flavours and extracts onto water. Certain things can cut things into fats, into oils. So when you walk into Tesco's or any shopping place, you'll get a chili infused oil. You'll get a garlic infused oil. How do they get things into oils? They cut in, so we call them splitters. So that's where the cinnamon is a highly technical bait, but going back to the old original cinnamons, go back to the old Hutchie writings and that.
Yeah, bun spice, that sort of thing, yeah.
When you look at a bun spice flavour, it's 30 to 35% cinnamon oil base is the bun spice. So you smell in bun spice, but it's actually 30% of that makeup of that flavour is cinnamon. So yeah, again, fenugreek's tucked in a lot of things. It's a phenomenal product. Let's get on to maple. So there's certain maple flavours. When you look at certain palatants out of the animal feed industry, they use a lot of fenugreeks. So fenugreek is an exceptional palatant, and in really good maple flavours, look at the background, is fenugreek. Exceptional product. But so the idea is to get the messages into the water, out your bait. So hence, I mean, I keep saying solubility. It's not all about solubility, but solubility is a very vast. We've all got such a short time on the bank. You can overload flavours where they're coating them up with bits and bobs, too high a level. I mean, Steve, Jim, they'll all tell you certain flavours, you can overload them with just going a little bit too high. A lot of the more volatile esters in the fruits, get your flavour levels wrong, that bait ain't going to work for 3 days by the time you've gone home. We're on short sessions. Most of us, time's precious now. There are people who can just sit on the bank and they just sit there with their tiger nuts till they eventually go.
So you're suggesting there a good point that you can over flavour a bait to the point where it's not attractive to the fish, but if it's in the water long enough, it will
become attractive.
By which time there's every chance you'll have gone home.
You've gone
That's
home.
what you're saying.
A carp is an inquisitive creature, and it will sample anything. Go anywhere. Flick a fag butt. Not that I smoke, and you shouldn't be flicking fag butts. You'll tell me off for that. Flick a fag butt on the water in a pond. They'll swim up and they'll take that fag butt. They'll spit it out. They take leaves, they suck, they spit anything, they sample it, they're tasting.
Their own shit included.
Yeah, they do, yeah. So a carp is an inquisitive creature, any animal. But carp, we're talking about carp today. They'll suck, they'll blow, they'll try anything. They do it very quickly as well, which is quite puzzling. How can they suck, sample, poof, out? Why? Why don't they just swallow it? And then all of a sudden they'll start feeding. It's a reaction that they're working out with this whole range of organs, what they use. I spoke to someone a while ago, down their lateral line, it's an electronic thing. There's 2,000, maybe more, receptor sites down the lateral line. I've been sitting in a tree, and my phone will ring in my pocket, and them fish, they're gone. And I think, they're feeling it. So quite often when I go fish spotting, I turn my phone off. Doesn't always work, but many times, Kev, I've done it. I'm sitting in the tree watching a fish and my phone will ring. Poof, gone. I'll even have my phone on low noise. They're feeling that electronic signal. Other times you can fucking throw bait on them, throw stones, and they just swim around, come back. So yeah, it's variables, but every day is different. Ring the changes every day. Bait, that bait ain't going to work all the time. When it gets warm, things change. So we certain baits with this one, on the red spice, that used to be as temperamental as hell in the summer. It took us a while to work it out. We lowered the levels of the two attractors, liquid attractors. One's bun spice. We lower it down in the summer, and the garlic as well. They combine quite well. And then in the winter, when it cools down, we up the levels. There's only a couple of mil in it, but that's the ideal levels: spring and summer, autumn, winter. And it's not a lot in it.
Again, talking with Ken, questions come into my head. I was going to ask him, when would you use or not use pop-ups versus match the hatch, so to speak, in terms of fishing a wafter or an identical bait, let's say, on the bottom compared with your pop-up?
That's another sort of endless question. I haven't used a pop-up for 12 years. I sell millions of them because I fish in slightly different ways. I'm using lots of ground bait, lots of feed, bottom baits or wafters, but every now and again pop-ups come into their own thing. They are, which I will be using this year, straight throwing stick boilie fishing, 3 single pop-ups out there over the top, low level, big pop-ups, and big boilies. So
and why are you using them this year as opposed to not the last 12 years?
Just different baiting scenarios. So what I'm going to be doing this year, I'm going to be sort of trying to be a bit more mobile. Normally I bait areas and I just fish them areas. This year I'm going to just start tracking the fish. We'll be fishing over beds of silkweed and that. They spend a lot of time up on the shallows in this place. I fish a lot of the margins. You'll find them in areas. Flick a little rig down there with a pop-up on over the silkweed, where everyone's always looking for clear areas now. Let's go in a different way. Sod the clear areas, let's get in the weed where they are.
In which case you would present a pop-up over the silkweed?
Yeah, just to get that little clear so the hook's clear. Stick a wafter in there, it's going to nail up in that silkweed as soon as they move, isn't it? So and it masks the point of the hook. Quite often I fish solid bag straight in weed, bottom bait or a wafter, so it don't move too much. Pop-ups can sit there as well. You can put solid bags. I use a lot of solid bag fishing. Ground bait, boilies, pellet, whack it in. Half the time it doesn't really matter what hook bait you're using. Martin, he just uses little sort of, I won't say too much, but half the time he goes, they just suck it in. They're hooking themselves while they're eating your method ball. You can get too technical. When you're fishing waters with a lot of bream nuisance fish, a pop-up can work quite well, because they'll be digging about, grubbing about, eating your smaller items on the bottom. Stick a nice pop-up on a decent rig that constantly resets itself. There's a few boys I've been watching recently. They're down in the Swindon area, mate. They're having some tremendous fish. Yeah, very, very good.
And your pop-up range, Ken, I've seen evolve this last year or two, is it? You've extended the pop-up range, is that fair to say?
I've always used frozen hook baits, and I've always pushed frozen hook baits. It's quite a temperamental way to do it, but you can get more liquids, they're fresher. I don't like a lot of, I have many reps coming in, we can sell you this, we can sell you that. Mate, I make my own. If it's not made here, I don't want to buy it. You can buy boxes of these neutral pop-ups.
Airball pop-ups.
Yeah, and you can buy them. They sell them to everybody. All they do is they spray a load of flavouring over the top, let it draw in a bag, and then tub it up and sell it. That's it. You've got a neutral ball of just basic pop-up mix. There's no powdered additives, food source. So we do like food source hook baits. They've got everything in, all your extracts, all your powders. And that's always been my way to go. But hook bait wise, I've always stayed away from the tubs. It's took me 8 years to get these right, which we are.
Yeah, I remember you playing about with these a couple of years back. Yeah.
It's been tremendous work going into getting something that I find is acceptable for what we want. We've even got to a point now where I'm getting feedback off anglers on these nut hard hook baits. The nut tubs are outdoing the frozen ones, which I'd never ever have thought, and that's it there. 16mm nut hard hook bait in a pot, you put a little bit of the liquid additive
shelf
on.
Life.
Yeah.
So what's making that so attractive, do you think?
We've just there's a lot of, no comment.
I knew we was going to get one of them sooner or later.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of thinking. It's not just a case of whack a load of preservative in there and a bit of maple flavour and off you go. There's all the powders in there, there's the liquids, but it's just holding it back long enough for it to go into water, and then it will become workable. So there's whey proteins in there, there's calcium casinates, there's isolated other products.
Again, solubles, Ken.
Yes, solubles, so they can leak out. It's not just an over-flavoured, coloured ball of crap.
Right,
Which is, these are food packages. They're giving off the food signal. They're giving off the amino acid, the sugar, the yeasts. But it's getting it to sit in a pot that is acceptable to use. And this year, I'm going to be just taking the pots
and I see
there.
from some of the boys, Ken, who have been doing very well with your pop-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A fella come in here a little while ago. He's got his own lake. He's been buying bait from a certain company for years. His brother uses my bait and he went, I'll give it a try. And I said, mate, just use that, make your fish grow R1. He come in a little while ago, he went, he said, I'm going to make your head swell up. I went, all right. I said, what's that? He went, I stopped in the shop. He said, because I was running low on wafters. He uses 18mm wafters, batters them. He said, I was running out of your wafters. he said, so I stopped in a shop and I bought a certain wafter, 18mm in a tub, and he said, I've been using my other wafters from the other company. He said, and I've done several sessions recently. He said, I've just come back from one now. He went, give me 2 tubs of them 18mm R1 wafters. He went, I had 10 bites. He said, I moved the rods about. He said, and this happened last week and the week before. He went, I moved the rods about. He went, this weekend, 10 bites. They all come to one wafter. He went, I'll leave you to make your mind up, and walked off laughing with his 2.
Yeah.
And he's fishing them against, he's one that he's used for 30 years, that's made for him by another company. Exceptional. But the R1 smashed it.
And again, like we were saying earlier, and we elaborated a little bit off camera, Ken is always complimentary of others when he sees fit. So I don't know that Ken or me would want to be sitting in front of this camera thinking Ken and Asylum is the only bait company out there. We would respect, as Ken has alluded to, there's some very good firms out there. But what I do know is that with my close mates who we share our information with, and I speak with some of them daily, if not weekly, yeah, there's some boys doing very well on there, under the radar, and will always be under the radar, unlike my captures, you know, which tend to go on the channel and so forth, doing particularly well right now. And anglers you'd never heard of, and captures you've never heard of. It's fair to say, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hook baits, like I said, we've never done coloureds. We're doing a few variations. These are the red spice. Now, red spice, we've always done that. That's what Grant had them 21 fish to 60 pound in the winter. Standard red, everyone uses them, all my bailiffs, everybody. Red spice pop-ups, 16mm, whack it on a stiff hinge rig, bang, off it goes. They even just use straight amnesia. And whack one of them on so it just sinks down, or wafters.
Yeah, it's a big range now. Also, Ken, you've got some other hook bait type ideas here. Let's just have a capture of those, or just get the other side of the camera. Yeah, Ken, just to elaborate on that pop-up thing, and you know, talking about the attractors that are in your pop-ups compared to being just a flavoured airball. Yeah, and you've seen the results as a result of that. Just making a very good pop-up as well as a good boilie, and the same goes for your wafters.
Hook baits, they're food source packages. They're giving off all the correct signals. So I get quite a few anglers. Even one of the fellas who buys bait off me, his brother owns a company that sells hook baits. He buys them off me, which is nice. It's quite flattering, really. He goes, I want food source pop-ups. So. Yeah, they go all around France, hammer the fish on them. They do very well. These baits, we just rolled them for them. These are the dumbbells they're using, Rock Hard, Mega Nut and R1. They go out fishing all strange rivers, strange lakes, pick a dot on the map, go and fish it. He said wherever we turn up, the fish just pick them up. But again, slightly different. Same with bait nowadays. Everyone uses just round boilies. We do a lot of dumbbells. Boilie crumb works exceptionally well. Mix it up, change it. Boilies are made round, one for throwing sticks as they used to be, catapults. They look good, but when you're manufacturing, they can go through the rollers, drop down a slope. They're a lot quicker, easier to make. But dumbbells can be exceptional, slightly different. I do a lot of fishing with dumbbells now, even hands, little bit of dumbbell, different sizes, whack them in the ground bait, fire the ball out, chuck a bag over the top with the same in it, bang, it's gone. Dumbbells can be slightly
changes.
different.
That makes perfect
sense. So with them, I use a hard, these are 32 by 24 dumbbells, and then I'll do another half of one of a wafter on the end, so when they suck it in, it just works slightly differently. So quite long hairs, it's brilliant.
And some good points there, Ken. And Ken, we've covered most of the bait now. One thing I always see when I come down here is what looks like not hundreds but thousands of eggs. You're still very much an advocate of using fresh eggs And you've done that for all the years I've known you.
Yeah, it's a very time consuming. We're 100% committed to fresh egg. Now, when most people, this is another strange thing. When you're making bait, the fresh egg. Years ago there was a lot of controversy about egg, this, that, the other. Does it work? Doesn't it work? Egg contains bacteria. Now, when you leave that egg out, you put it near water, that bacteria can be quite volatile. So when you're trying to get a reaction in a bait, which is what I was talking about earlier, catalysts. So you want to get some bacteria that will start working in synergy with liquids and powders. The egg can give you that bacteria, what you need to set a fish meal off. So where the bigger bait companies can't use that quantity of egg, they all use powder or liquid preserved. Now, most of them all using powder now, which they blend up with tap water. So I won't even drink tap water, Kev. Taste it, it's horrible. It's full of chlorines, chlorides. So any water we use here, we're very careful what we do. We gas it off. We might leave that water 3 or 4 days before we even go near it. It all runs through charcoal purifiers, which I won't show you. We boil it off in the mornings before we even use it. We're ticking boxes. 2% here, 3%, 5%.
And you often refer to it being about finite percentages.
Yes. So when you're looking at someone I know does a lot of, they work in a food laboratory, and they showed me a lot of data sheets where they've been analysing everyone's bait, and I was laughing. I said to him, you're slipperier than you look. They've analysed this company, that company, this company. I said, I hope you've analysed mine. And he was saying, because this company's fish meal, the protein level's at 24%. I said, well, yeah, but when you look at data of carp, this, that, the other, big females can only digest 28% on average in the laboratory tests. So there's an infinite line of what you're doing here, but digestibility on carp, that's another thing, different tangent. So, but he was showing me there's a certain spike. Now that spike in the testing is showing, which we think is coming from where they're blending the egg up with the tap water in the morning, fill the butt up, whisk it up. That's where your spike on this testing's coming. I wouldn't want to see that spike in my bait. So you won't get it with a fresh egg. You will get ammonia from the egg when it starts to decompose, but that's a different thing. So there's all sorts of box ticking exercises which we do, but one of them, no one's paying attention to the water they're using. So palatability, taste chlorines, taste what's in tap water. It's horrible. That's why I drink bottled water. Fresh. We use a lot of bottled water in here, Kev. There's things everywhere. Bottled water. We use lots of it every day. That goes in our bait because it's been through purifiers. It's beautiful. But even any water for the boiling, we pay particular attention to it. No one does because it's an unregulated business. Run some water in a tap, in a glass, bubbles that come off, chlorines, chlorides.
So I was just saying to Ken, we were close to concluding and just making sure we'd picked up on everything, and not least of all where Ken is and how you get his bait and stuff. But you just said there was something you wanted to touch on.
Yeah, quite a major thing, and this is going to rattle a few cages. Modern bait game. So we watched it happen a few years ago. Stabilised, right? So I am full on dead against fully preserved baits. There's a lot of testing being done. Ash Girdler done a tremendous test, which you can see fish were dying, long-term thing on it. I know a college done a thing and were threatened with libel suits if they brought the information out. Fish were dying left, right and centre on long-term preservatives. again, there's no regulation in levels. Now, the modern trend where baits go in, you go in a tackle shop, you buy a bag of bait that's sat there for 3 months. The word preservative is now turned into stabilised. It's preservative, yeah? It's just a more friendly word. So I won't have them on my lakes. A lot of people won't have them on their lakes, but when you talk to people who shift and sell these things, one of the fellas was in here a little while ago, and he was trying to help me business-wise. And he said 90% of all sales is the stabilised range. And I said to him, so when you look at fish, carp itself, and humans, if you eat too much preservative, it messes you up. Now, carp have got a lot simpler. Our systems can deal with it. We've got a very complex digestive system, but a carp and a cow and a pig haven't. They've just got a tract. A cow has, it's got quite a bit, but less complex than a human. But a carp has just got a tract which is full of microflora. Now, when they're eating lots of preservative levels, preservative kills bacteria. So the carp's gut,
in order to work, a preservative has got to kill bacteria.
It kills, right, that's what it does. It stops the formulation of mould and bacteria. So when you've got a bait that sits on a shelf to prevent the bacteria forming, that bait is inactive. And how long before you put that bait in water does it become active? So a lot of any food source, but especially boilies, the carp will eat them when they're hungry. They have to eat them. You will get bites on them, but that is an inactive substance you're putting out there. You will get bites on it. The more fish in there, the more chance you've got of getting a bite. But when you've got a weapon that is highly volatile, our nut mix is burnt and finished within 48 hours in the summer. 3 days it's gone, it pops up and floats off. It's so gases up so quick, it's tremendous. So when I go fishing, I want a bait that works. It's volatile. We've got a chain reaction going on in all of them that enhances, produces attractability, where it's the fish meals are pre-digesting themselves, they're breaking down. It's all set off by the bacteria from the egg.
Which hasn't been killed because the preservative isn't in there.
Exactly.
So it's alive.
Which is why I've had so much trouble producing hook baits that really do work, which we've gone off on a different tangent, which is good. I'm happy with them. I use them. I'm fine with it. But the modern bait trend, preservative, it's good. They're pumping it in lakes. We know quite a few lakes the fish ain't growing because they're getting this cheap feed bait off these companies. Oh, whack it in, whack it in. The fish are they can't grow. The boys down another lake down here were feeding this big fish, all these ready-mades from this factory, £2 a kilo, couldn't get it to grow. We gave them my grow bait. That fish went up to mid-50s in 6 months because it had the protein, the diet that it needed. So the modern bait game, when you speak to anyone, even that fellow who was trying to put me on to help me business-wise by going into that ready-made, we don't want to deal in that. We're looking for the 2%, 1% of all them 100 anglers that walk through that door every week. We want to deal with them. They all use fresh bait. I said to him, you don't use preserved bait, do you? He went, no, I don't. I said, I rest my case, but I appreciate. So for me, bait-wise, we would always keep it fresh. I do part preserve for a few boys, but preservative, in what I think, speak to Jim, speak to anyone who's bloody good at bait, and they'll all tell you the same thing. Preserved bait cannot work as good as fresh frozen bait, but it's the problem of moving that frozen bait from A to B. Couriers, that's why we do the collection thing here on a Saturday. Come and get your bait, and by appointment only midweek. I sell a product that I believe in, and I will not sell junk. So
no, fair point. And people know that, Ken, who come here. People that know you and come here know that. Ken, just quickly, just remind people how they get hold of your bait. Right, hold it now. Just come back. You're quite difficult at times to get hold of.
Very difficult, yeah. When I get really busy, I stop answering the phone, and everybody wants to talk bait. We're running things in a slightly different way this year, where I try to manufacture with the boys because I have to be hands-on. It all has to be done correct, perfect. There's no problems. I've took a new fella on this year who's helping. He's running things, he's doing my job, so it frees me up now, so I can get on the phone more, I can answer questions. But I chat to people. Afternoons is best, mornings we're busy getting things going, getting set up, dealing with couriers. It's hard, yeah, when we're busy it's hard to talk to people, but I do try and do my best. Also, once I've been here from 8 in the morning till 6, 7 o'clock at night, I go home. Obviously people are coming home from work, they start trying to text me or ring me. I ain't going to answer it, I'm with my wife, I've got 2 hours with my kids and wife and have dinner. Bugger off, phone someone who cares. Because that's my wife's time, my time.
Yeah, and you do have to separate it. I think most people, you know, in whatever they do for a living, can relate to there's a time when that phone just has to be left alone. And quality time with the family takes precedence. Absolutely.
A couple of years ago, like we was talking about the COVID period where things went off the scale. Kev, people ringing me 10, 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday.
Yeah, no, you can't be doing with that. So getting hold of you in the afternoons during the working week, they can come down here on a Saturday and pick their bait up, or Monday to Friday by appointment if need be. Otherwise Saturday's your main day, 10 o'clock, and then there's a boys breakfast that those who might want to join at 9 o'clock, local, where I've met you a few times. Otherwise they come here at 10 o'clock and you're open for a few hours, pick the bait up, have coffee and biscuits and have a chat.
Saturdays is busy as hell in the mornings, so the best, if you want to come in and chat about bait, come and chat after 1 o'clock, 1, 2 o'clock, it quietens down. But we do what we can to help anyone, we talk to anyone. But
and you do, Ken. I've been here when guys have come down and, you know, they want your time and stuff, and equally you're pulled from pillar to post.
It is,
and I'll put, am I okay to put your phone number?
No.
So how do people get hold of you?
Yeah, the number's out there, you'll find me. If you want it, is what we say, if you want good bait, you'll persevere and find me. We was talking earlier about what directions, what's for the future. The future in the fishing industry, tackle shops are shutting left, right and centre, bait firms are closing, so at this precise moment is surviving. You talk to some of the real big firms, they worked last year, they covered all their costs and they made no profit. Same here. Just because as soon as you raise your prices too high, bang, 90% of all them tourists, they're off to the next one, the next best thing. So we've got our loyal base, that's what I try and build up here. Anglers who just don't care, they want the best bait. There's few companies that do it. John Baker's got exceptional products, you've got to roll them. Sam Boilie, exceptional products, what he does, you've got to roll it. Here, luckily, we do bloody good bait, exceptional bait, some people will tell you, blow my own trumpet, but it's the best I can make. Affordability, it's what I use. I can make dearer bait, it ain't going to catch you more.
But equally you could make a lot, you could sell bait still at quite a high price with cheaper ingredients. And
we could get on that little bit, the root of all evil.
Gone down, particularly when powdered or all ingredients during COVID, like we alluded to earlier, were going up exponentially. And all of a sudden your profit margins being eroded massively.
It's quite shocking, Kev, when you actually look into it and you see why does this bait not work. So they bring a bait out, it works exceptionally well for a small period. Field testers get a version, the chaps who work there get different versions, and then the one they sell ain't the same.
It don't happen here.
That's big business.
So coming back
margins,
to you, how do people order your bait or get hold of you, or not, as the case might be? Because you'll have people, you know, wanting your bait. You've got a loyal customer base for sure already. But in summary, how does people
just
get hold of your bait?
Be a bit persistent, really. Find my number. I've got a few of them now. Jordan's recommended a few fellas to me, other people. just
yeah, it's not that you don't want the customers, Ken. I think in the way that comes across, it could almost feel like people saying, well, you don't really want my business.
I do, yeah.
You do want their business. So
one of my greatest pleasures, Kev, is self-doubt is one of the biggest things in all people's lives. I'm just people go, oh, you're the bait specialist, what do you reckon? And I think, well, who's he talking to? But I've been doing it a long time. I'm obsessed with it. I'm just someone who's excels in what I think. I don't give away, like as you found today, I don't talk too much about anything. Why educate everybody else? Don't sort of try to be clever. I'm just a young fellow who got obsessed with carp, obsessed with how to catch them. I got a lucky break. Jimmy Burns was the catalyst. As I talk about catalysts, he put me onto it. He fed me them things. We learned. I had an inquisitive mind. Chew people's ears off. I used to rinse his brains every day. Hello, but he wouldn't give a lot. He's shrewd. Yeah, there's all sorts. But then when you get onto your mates, I even have to be careful what I talk to with mates. Even like Jim, I don't tell. He just goes, Gatesy, make a bait that works. We're playing with prototypes at the moment for Jim. I've had the boys out fishing with them on the easier lakes. We've done 2 variations. Now, variation 1, really low levels. Variation 2, which is what you would look at as a sort of a commercial bait. But the catch thing I'm getting back, everybody's saying I'm getting more bites on 1 and hardly anything on 2. There's not a lot in it. So number 1's what we're going with. I will whack a little bit. Number 1 for Jim.
that's another bleep.
Bleep,
yeah, I'm bleeping that out. Where are we located here? What's this area? Botham, are we?
Botham.
So Ken's at Botham in Essex, which is sort of 12 minutes from the tunnel and bridge, Dartford Bridge. Yeah, and just off the M25, A13.
Yeah.
So on a Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, they can come down here and catch up with you, and there's a lot of bait in the freezer they can go at.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been down here an hour and a half longer than I'd planned. But either way, guys, I hope you've enjoyed that. And Ken, thank you. You know, that 2.5 years or whatever it was has flown by, you know, and like we said earlier, in many ways, COVID, you know, in a lot of ways is a distant memory. There's one thing you wanted to touch on we didn't touch on, and that was you thinking out of the box with your equipment over there.
Yeah,
do you want to show that on camera just before we
why
go?
not?
So we're just going to show something Ken he was talking about a few weeks back, and it's not bait related, but it just shows you how Ken thinks with his fishing. So we'll just quickly capture that and then bring this to a conclusion. And just touch on something that, you know, is not bait related that you were talking about.
Yeah, we was talking about earlier about markets, companies, big companies, the modern trend with phone, etc, etc. So when you look at tubing, I use very different tubing.
I'll talk to the
you've been pike. I mean, even pike fishing, Kev. My rigs, you wouldn't believe what I use, but I tend to catch quite a lot of bigger pike. Carp wise, when you go back years ago, when anti-tangle tubing come about, remember Zen and that used to pull out the stuff out the 2.5 wire out your household plugs, anything. Coatsy, one of the best anglers I've ever met, used to use plastic off the fencing wire. But nowadays it's all about the thinner tungsten loaded tiny thin tubing, and I've been having a bit of a joke in here because I use different stuff. So this year I'm looking at all different things. I've got some stiff tubing like that. I've got this is the one I'm going to be using for my carp fishing, this one and that one. And people go, how can you use that? They'll see it. Well, of course they'll see it. Does it need to be hidden? Great big thick tubing. We're fishing where there's all Norfolk reed. It dies over the years, lays on the bottom, Phragmites. It blends in. It's nice and stiff. It keeps the line off them when we want to fish on contours. This stuff, people can't get their heads around it. Look, it sinks. It's perfect. It's about £1. Great big thick different tubing, stretchy, nice. Think outside the box. It hasn't got to be tiny thin 0.75 as you're told on all the videos. You can't see it. Just go fishing.
Yeah, to add, one of the reasons why you're doing this.
Yeah, you've been trying to track me for a long time to get me to do this. I'm not interested, but I bumped into at Lee Jackson's slideshow the other week. Do you remember? He done that talk, didn't he, in Kent? And I bumped into Jason Haywood first time. He's been helpful, put a lot of people my way, vice versa. Lovely fella. And he was saying to me, why don't you do this, do that, do a bit of media? Not interested. I don't want to be famous. And he said to me, no, you've got it wrong. He went, look at what carp fishing's given you over the years. And he said, we're struggling to get young people coming into the sport now. He said, put something back. And it made me think. And that's when we spoke and I said, okay, let's get it on, Kev, let's do it. So I've done a very limited talk about this. Hopefully it will inspire a few people to think about bait, young and old. But the reason I'm doing it, I have done this, when you see this, is not, I don't want to be famous, I'm not trying to push my products, Kev, we're just showing you what we do. Put something back into the sport, which we're going to be looking at hopefully in a future date with Kevin on this new thing that he's putting out. A lot of older anglers go, oh, I don't want to be on camera, I don't want to be in film. We're going to try and speak to them, get them, sit them down, put something back into something that has given you so much, and help the younger kids coming through, the younger and older generation new into carp fishing. Put something back.